Hi everyone. In this video I'm going to give you a lot more details about how the pen tool works in Adobe Illustrator. I showed you previously some very basic pen tool skills and you practice them in class, but this time around I'm going to give you a lot more with the pen tool. The reason here is that when you're doing your logo for the identity package, you need to have at least some small familiarity with the pen tool. You can use the other drawing tools in Illustrator to create basic shapes, but to actually create custom typography or other shapes, you really need to use the pen tool. So I briefly mentioned before the pencil tool. This is used for freeform drawing, generally with a Wacom or tablet or other form of stylus-based input. The pen tool, on the other hand, does not require a stylus and allows for more precise drawing. So here's how the pen tool works. Every time you click the pen tool, it's going to create an anchor point. This is essentially just a point where directions can change on a shape. When I click a second time, it then creates a segment joining those two anchor points together, and I can keep going and it will continue to join segments together. When I come back around to the beginning of the shape, it will close off that shape and I have a complete shape here. The pen tool works for doing straight lines really easily. So for instance, if I wanted to do a series of peaks like mountains, I could create a couple of guides here and then add anchor points to create this little stylized mountain range. I could also do something like, say, an arrow. Make sure when you're working with the pen tool to have the stroke turned on. Let's turn it on to, let's say, 2 points to make it really clear, because otherwise it's just going to create a path, but there's not going to be any stroke there, so you're not really going to be able to see much of anything. There's a number of different icons that you'll see next to the pen tool when you are working with it. So you'll see these icons next to your pen tool. The first one is a X or a star, depending on which version of Illustrator you're working in, and this indicates that you are starting a new path. The pen tool without any icon next to it indicates that you're adding a new anchor point to an existing path. The pen tool with the circle next to it, like that there, indicates that you are closing off an existing path. The pen tool with a plus sign or a minus sign next to it. Plus sign indicates that you are adding an anchor point. Minus sign indicates that you are deleting an anchor point. You'll occasionally want to go in and add a new anchor point if you're using the scissors tool to cut, or if you're doing anything in the way of changing curves or things like that. Last but not least, if I deselect this shape, I can go back to it by clicking the pen tool, and you'll see if I mouse over one of the ends that we get the slash next to the pen tool. That means that if I click there I am now back on this shape and I am continuing on with this shape. The direct selection tool is this arrow right here. It's the white arrow, not the black arrow. And the direct selection tool is used to select individual anchor points on an existing path. This is really important when working with the pen tool because you don't have to be super precise. You can then select and move these anchor points around later. Also, you can go back and select anchor points to adjust them in different ways. So far I've been doing straight lines with the pen tool, and so I'm going to show you how to work with curves, because curves is where you can get some really complicated, interesting things going on. So I'm going to select this anchor point right here, and then I'm going to go back to the pen tool. And if I mouse over this anchor point while holding down the Alt or Option key, you'll see that my icon changes to a little angle. That angle sign is what's called the Convert Anchor Point tool. This essentially changes this anchor point from a straight anchor point, what's known in Adobe lingo as a corner point, to a curved anchor point, what's known in Adobe lingo as a smooth point. So I can click this and drag out, and that will drag handles. These handles allow me to control exactly how this curve works. If I hold down the Shift key, those handles will snap to 45-degree angles. You'll see two different ends to the handles. The left end here controls what's coming into the anchor point. The right end controls what's going out of that anchor point. And we can control these independently by going to the Direct Selection tool and selecting them, and then going back to the pen tool and using, again, holding down the Alt key, we can control individual portions of this. So if I was doing waves, like in the practice file we did in class, I could do that one like that, and then come back here, grab the other one and pull it down as well. And I have a nice little peak like that. So by controlling individual handles, you can control pretty much any way that you want a curve to work. So we can end up with almost any number of potential curves here. If I wanted to smooth out the bottom points, all I would have to do is select those anchor points. Go back to the pen tool, use the Alt key, and pull them out like so. And I can smooth out the middle of the valleys there. So by using the Convert Anchor Point tool and controlling individual handles, I can control pretty much any way I want this to look. Let's take a look at this arrow here and see this in practice. So there's two things I could make pretty easily out of this arrow. So if I rotate this up, like this, you'll see that it looks like a little bit like a heart. My suggestion when you're working with curved shapes is to block out the shape in straight lines first, and then go in and worry about your curves. That allows you to do it a little bit easier. It gets you not worrying about the entire shape and instead just gets you working on individual anchor points one at a time. So by blocking it out, I can then go in, I can use the direct selection tool to pick this anchor point right here. I can go back to the pen tool, use option, and I can create 1/2 of this heart. Then I can go back here, again click my anchor point, pen tool, Alt or Option key, and I've got a heart. I could control this anchor point right here to control whether or not this comes directly to a point, or I might actually want it to come instead to a little bit of a round edge. So by pulling this out like this, I can control that. I can control this anchor point to control where these come in. And so on. Another example is I could create the Airbnb logo, which basically just a rounded arrow with another little section, so I'd have to rotate this back again. And in this case, I'm going to want to round off the top. Each corner. And that middle part. I could then use the direct selection tool to go back in here and pull this anchor point up and continue to adjust the size of these anchor points and their position and get this just the way I like it. Okay, so by using the pen tool, you can create shapes from scratch, but you can also customize typography and existing icons. So you're going to need to become familiar with this tool in order to complete your logo, because you're not going to be able to just drop an icon in and add some text. You're going to need to be able to customize icons, create shapes, and customize your text. In class, we're going to practice with a couple of different practice documents. I would suggest you also play with it a little bit yourself before and after class, because it's really a feel thing, and the more you can do it, the better you will get at it. Okay everyone, thanks for watching, and I will see you in class.